Welcome everyone, it is me, Maximus. I really appreciate you stopping by on today's video. We're learning a little bit more about aviation and military fighter jets around the world, and today we are visiting Russia and the MiG-31 Foxhound. Now, I always love the names they give different fighter jets in different NATO designations, and the Foxhound is one of those ones that really does bring a little twinkle to my eye, because it just seems like an awesome comparison to putting a fox and a hound together in the same word, considering normally they're both worst enemies. But I just absolutely love the different names they give, Russian fighter jets, and this fighter jet is just incredible. When you actually start looking at the intricacies of this jet and the capabilities that it had for its time, very, very impressive. Now, I am not an aviation expert, folks, so I want to make this very clear that anything that I do put in this video I hope is accurate, but if it's not, I'd love for you to correct me and I'll try and annotate that in the comment section below. So let's talk about this incredible fighter jet. So, for back in its day, it was first showcased and seen from the western side as the Soviet Union's Mikoyan MiG-31, making its first exhibition appearance in the Paris Air Show in 1991, and was given a show of brute force in terms of long-range interceptor capability. It was originally developed to counter the US Air Force's Lockheed SR-71 strategic reconnaissance aircraft and the US cruise missile-carrying bombers. The aircraft was originally designed around a large, phased array radar, which was very advanced for its day, and an associated weapon missile system with a look-down, shoot-down capability. Also, with the impressive supersonic performance of those two massive engines producing so much thrust, pushing it to an extreme speed, which resulted in a very versatile interceptor that is now even being adapted to new missions to this day. While the aircraft was a derivative of the MiG-25 and bears a strong external similarity to it, the two-place MiG-31 is described by Edward K. Krabrubsky, or Mikoyan Deputy Chief Designer, who led the development effort, as a, quote, new design with different engines, a new weapon system, new missiles, and a totally new mission, unquote. At the time they designed the MiG-31, the Soviet Union felt menaced from the north and the west by high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft and bombers equipped with cruise missiles. They needed an aircraft that could meet this threat and also intercept very small flying missiles and other targets capable of flying at extremely high speeds. Development of the MiG-31 began in the early 1970s. The first prototype flew in 1975 and series production began in 1979. As the aircraft matured in operational service, the mission for the MiG-31, known as by NATO as the Foxhound, was expanded to include countering the United States Air Force Rockwell B-1 bomber. And in further operational enhancements, the aircraft currently are deployed to 4-ship formations with their radar systems interconnected by onboard data links to sweep intercept areas of 500 to 600 miles across. The same system combines the enabling MiG-31s to function as an airborne warning and control system, or AWACS, which is a platform capable of directing the attacks of other aircraft such as the MiG-29s, Su-27s, and other fighter jets within the fleet. The evolution of the MiG-31 from the MiG-25 resulted in a huge aircraft that is 74.4 feet long with a wingspan of 44.2 feet wide. The aircraft has an impressive gross takeoff weight of 90,364 pounds, including this chubby little pilot, and also has a maximum gross takeoff weight including fuel, internal fuel, and combat load of 101,824 pounds. The primary internal fuel load is about 34,200 pounds, carried in a combination of two large fuselage tanks aft of the cockpit and tanks filled around the forward inlet sections of the integral wing tanks that extend out to the outer wing understore stations. An additional 1,350 pounds worth of fuel can be carried in tanks fitted to the twin vertical fins. The MiG-31's range and combat endurance can be extended with aerial refueling, which is pretty self-explanatory for that day, when they needed aircraft that could do long-range interception to keep up with the bombers. Two Tamansky D-30F6 turbofan engines, each producing a maximum thrust of 34,162 pounds with afterburning, power the MiG-31. They give it a sustained supersonic speed of Mach 2.35 at 60,000 feet, with a maximum dash speed of Mach 2.83 and a Mach 1.6 capability in low-level flight. The MiG-31 is an overall interceptor design, which is giving it a varied load of defensive missions and defensive missiles to be able to engage multiple targets. A typical armament load includes 4 AA-9 AMOS long-range radar-guided missiles carried in semi-buried stores under the stations on each side of the fuselage, with 2 AA-8 AFID infrared-guided medium-range missiles, or 2 short-range missiles that are carried in the inner wing pylons. These weapons are complemented and augmented by a 6-barrel 23mm cannon mounted in the conformal fuselage pod located above the right main landing gear bay. The cannon, which has a 6,000 round per minute rate of fire, is fed by a drum containing 260 rounds. The radar has the capability to scan plus 70 degrees vertically and 60 degrees right and left in a horizontal as well. They have a search range of about 160 nautical miles, and the aircraft is capable of tracking up to 10 targets and attacking 4 simultaneously. The data link system transmits via an array of antennas that include 3 on each side of the MiG-31's nose and 2 on each side of the aft fuselage. Conformal antennas associated with communication links to the Soviet Air Force's ground control system are located in the leading edges of the 2 aft-mounted central fins. So let's have a quick look from this old school video that gives a little bit of an idea of what the difference of radar arrays that this aircraft had back in the day and how they worked with this shoot below principle, which I found very interesting.
The radar, a powerful phased array system, was new to the Soviet Air Force. It could distinguish targets from above, hence the title, Look Down, Shoot Down. In ordinary radar systems, the radar dish itself moves. The scan time is controlled by the speed at which the system can physically swing back and forth. It was a challenge to Soviet technology to develop a system that could break free from this physical limitation. In the phased array system, the radar dish stays still and the beam itself is moved. It can be thrown from the extreme right to the extreme left in milliseconds. This allows the weapon system to fire at several targets, guiding 4 missiles in different directions at the same time. The US Navy F-14 Tomcat has a similar radar system, but it can only fire at targets remaining in one plane, and it has less search and track range than the MiG-31. The MiG-31 was the first fighter to have a phased array antenna of this type. Special equipment continually measures the coordinates of other MiG-31s in the group, so each one always knows exactly where the others are. At a range of 150 kilometers, the radar can track up to 10 targets at the same time and automatically identify whether they are friends or foes. The 4 targets the system considers to be the most dangerous are automatically selected by the computer and assigned for simultaneous firing. When several MiG-31s are flying together as a group and they encounter large numbers of targets, it's important to decide which plane picks up which target. The weapon system of the MiG-31s allows this to happen in a coordinated manner and even builds in the possibility of some deceptive maneuvering. None of the MiG-31's rival fighters, the F-14, the F-15 or the Tornado, can talk to their group members through digital links and coordinate a team effort. The MiG-31 has high supersonic cruise capability. It can also fly at higher altitudes than incoming escort fighters. With this performance and its look-down, shoot-down weapons system, it has the advantage of firing from above its opponents while moving at higher speeds than they are. The MiG-31's missiles are not carried on hard points under the wing. They are launched from semi-recessed storage positions under the fuselage.
So as you can see, for its day, pretty technologically advanced when trying to engage long-range bombers or intercepting missions. Most of the MiG-31 airframe is constructed from advanced aluminium alloy material, which can be used in areas where aerodynamic surface temperatures do not exceed 150 degrees Celsius. Titanium and stainless steel are used in critical areas where surface temperatures can reach 300 degrees Celsius at high Mach numbers. The MiG-31 is stable in all speed regimes, and there are no pitch changes during transition from subsonic to supersonic flight. The fuel in the tail is not used for center of gravity trim. One of the most notable things on this aircraft that you see are the huge engine inlets, and the MiG-31 have much larger and considerably more complex than those of the MiG-25, and are designed to eliminate the airflow problems that adversely affected the earlier aircraft's specific fuel consumption in subsonic regimes. The MiG-31 inlets include hinged lower lips and movable upper ramps for shockwave control. The landing gear includes two twin-nosed wheel units with a mudguard and unique main mount bogies that have the outer wheels in each pair of set head of the inner wheels, instead of these side by side on the common axle. This arrangement makes it possible to rotate the main wheel units as their gear retract to facilitate stowing the wheels in the fuselage wells. It also spreads the main wheel footprint during takeoff and landings, which makes it possible to operate the MiG-31 on grass or even semi-prepared runways. On landings, the rear wheels touch down first, and the aircraft pivots forward on the main gear units until the forward wheels make contact. The MiG-31 wing has the same basic platform that of the MiG-25, but the wingtip end plates are used on the early aircraft have been eliminated. Sweep angle of the main airfoil is 41 degrees, and the leading edge extensions with a sweep angle of approximately 70 degrees have been added to the MiG-31 wing roots to enhance the maneuverability at high angles of attack. Each wing leading edge is divided into 4 hydraulically actuated flap sections that deploy to a maximum of 10 degrees. They also function in an automatic mode as maneuvering flaps. The wing trailing edges have a large inboard flap section that deploy to a maximum of 30 degrees and allow the aircraft to do some incredible maneuvers. Now you're probably wondering, why am I talking so much about its aerodynamics and the way that this aircraft is set about with the air intakes and the way the fuselage is set? It really is very important, because the capability of this aircraft is to get as much speed as possible using as little fuel as possible. So 6 circular blow-in ports about 2 inches in diameter have been located midway between the MiG-31's extremely long inlet ducts to provide cooling bleed air to the engine compartments. These help counteract the thermal effects on the engine bays from the slipstream air heated by the surface friction during very high-speed flight. The MiG-31's large twin vertical fins have a slight outward cant and are festooned with a variety of antennas and tail warning devices. An aerodynamic fairing stretches along the top of the fuselage from the 2-person cockpit to the landing drag chute container between the engine nozzles. The fairing functions as a tunnel for the electrical wires, radio connections, and hydraulic and fuel lines. Similar channels are aerodynamically fed into the bottom fuselage and along the lower wing routes. Twin speed brake panels hinged at the forward edge are mounted on the lower fuselage ahead of each wheel well. They deploy downward into the slipstream and can be extended at all speeds up to high supersonic cruise. In low-level subsonic flight, the limiting factor is the aerodynamic pressure, which at maximum level overpowers the hydraulic actuators and either prevents the extension or automatically retracts them. There have been many variants of this aircraft. The most modern version is the MiG-31BM. It is an improved version of the MiG-31B with an added air-to-ground capability. It was introduced in 1998. The MiG-31BM is built as a true multi-role aircraft for the Russian Air Force and is able to undertake long-range interception, precision strike, and defensive suppression tasks. So there you have it, folks, the MiG-31 Foxhound. What an incredible jet, and purely built for speed to engage those long-range missions in terms of interception. I am very impressed with this fighter, and just the engines alone really make me just go wow. When you look at the power this thing can produce, it's incredible. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please leave me a like, and I'd love to hear your comments on this aircraft itself.